All right, all right, all right. Here we are at the end of our experimental stream day. It was fun. I'm sure we'll dig into that a lot over the next about 55 minutes here. We lost a couple of minutes there because we had a technical delay, but that's all good. We've learned a lot during the last while, that's for sure. If you have any questions for anyone that was here today, we're all here, as you can see. But if you have any questions for us, then throw them in the chat. Do throw here to record in that, because that's the chat I'm watching, and then I can ask those questions to anybody here specifically. But I think I'll kick things off by going through each of you in the order that you can be seen here, since that was the order we did the streams, and we can just have just a short little chat about it, how each stream went. And that's Photo Joseph, that would be you up first. What did you think? How do you feel about how things went?
It was awesome. The handoff seemed so clean. I know some people are saying that if they'd popped out the chat, it didn't quite do the handoff properly, but for most people, it seemed to work really well. And I think that is just awesome. Technically, everything went great for me, except for my closing. I hit my start button instead of my stop button. I guess I got to move those around on my Stream Deck a little bit. But no, I think technically things went really, really well. It was a lot of fun. I think I watched every single show all the way through. It was fun to be a part of this. And I think the audience really enjoyed it as well.
The comments and feedback was great along the way. Next up, Doug, how do you feel things went during your live show? Tell us about it.
Well, this is one of those classic examples of you can test and test and test and test, and then something different happens when you go live. So in my case, I was using WebPresenter 4K in order to stream the video in 4K, and somewhere very early on, it had trouble getting out to the internet, and so my stream was very stuttery. And Joseph had to actually call me on the phone to let me know because I wasn't monitoring the chat. But fortunately, I had another streaming device set up on standby, so I failed over to that, and then I was able to pick up from there. But always disappointing when things don't go exactly the way that you hope. But I think the material came across all right, and I've since reposted a good copy of the video. So if anybody tried to watch it and couldn't, that video is actually live now. So hopefully, yeah, you'll be able to get something out of that.
That's perfect. Yeah, I think I was confident that you'd be running a record on your end, so I knew we'd have plenty of material afterwards. So we're all good there, and I'll place that on the website as well if you happen to visit the website after the fact. Next up, Petra. You're talking about switchers. Yeah. Did you manage to get it all packed in? I did watch along, but you managed to get it all packed in?
I did, but it was quite indeed very, very, very fast. 30 minutes. I thought it would. I had plenty of time to talk about questions, etc. But 30 minutes is not a lot, especially if you pack a lot of information in there. I really liked it. I loved that we could hop from one person to the next. I was very impressed by it, but I was also nervous about it because I have never done that before. I was like, oh, when do I start exactly? Do I need to start a minute earlier? That kind of stuff. It's quite interesting. And of course, like Doug mentioned, he has some issues. So it's like, do I need to go earlier now?
Yeah, I think that was something we can chat about as well. It's like, what would be a backup plan? How can we improve this in the future? But that is funny. We were sort of deciding on the fly, like, what should we do here? And giving him a call was the best solution that we can come up with, which is great.
I love that David, somebody asked in the chat what our back. Like, we don't have one.
We don't need one for this one. Yeah, next time we'll have so many backup plans, which is perfectly fine. But David, you talked about something I think you're super comfortable with, Companion. How do you think that went?
Good. I mean, that's always just a matter of, when you've only got half an hour to talk about something, in hindsight, I'm like, oh man, I wish I'd make a whole PowerPoint deck, but that takes a ton of time. And I feel like so much of live streaming is that what's below the tip of the iceberg, like you've got this small amount of the show, but then beneath all of that is the preparation that sits underwater. So that just takes a lot of time. I did find that the stage timer was really handy in terms of keeping us all on track. And I set up another laptop just off camera so that I could have a big number there so that I just sort of knew how much time I had counting down and also in the pre-roll going into the show.
Exactly. I did the same. I set up a separate monitor today specifically just for the timer, and I think it helped a lot. Ryan, you were looking a little bit upside down there earlier, but you seem to be fixed yourself. How do you think your session went?
Oh, look, it was a bit on its head to start, but I think we ended up doing pretty well. It was started at had my alarm set for 2:50 this morning, and got into the studio, set everything up. Realized I didn't have a tripod plate for the camera, so I've got it sitting on Pelican cases and got everything going and last minute tests. But overall, I think it was really fun. I really loved the concept. Like, it was really awesome seeing back to back streams, and I was listening to all the streams as I was setting up, and yeah, I had a lot of fun, and I hope everyone did it as well.
Yeah, I definitely felt that too. Just after I had kicked things off, and then we went over to Joseph, I was just like, this makes sense actually. If the technology doesn't fail you for that handover, it just made sense to sit there and watch it all happen. And then we wrap things up with you, Aaron, talking about destinations and things like that. So how do you feel things went on your end?
It was a lot of fun. I had prepared some of that, like a rough outline, I guess, of what I wanted to cover, and had to adapt my timing, let's just put it that way, to get it to fit under the 30-minute mark. But I think I did okay. I got through all the main points I wanted to hit. I could have easily spent an hour on that. I probably should turn that into an actual dedicated video because there's a lot of stuff in there. But I think it went really well. And I also really thought the live handoffs worked quite well. Definitely went well, and it was a lot of fun.
That's one of the things you don't realize until you're live is each of us have slightly different delays on our stream. So I think some of us were doing normal, some of us were doing low latency. And for example, I think maybe it was you, Photo Joseph, that said, "Oh, I think I've got about a minute to go." And on my timer, I was like, "You do not have 1 minute to go." So it was really interesting to see that difference between each of our streams, and something I never would have thought about in advance at all.
Yeah, our different latencies may mean that we need to do a 3-minute countdown timer, because I don't know how you guys did, because we really didn't talk about this, but whenever, basically I had my stream going with a waiting for the stream to end, one of the graphics that Doug had made, and then as soon as I saw whoever was before me, and in your case you, stop the stream, that's when I hit go on my 2-minute countdown video.
Oh, okay.
But of course, that meant that because there's maybe 30-second delay on you, people got in, there's a minute 30. But like you said, for me going out, it was a much bigger delay because my 4K stream is a much bigger delay than a HD ultra low latency stream.
I was using the stage timer. So it was basically when it was getting, and John, in stage timer, can you set the colors of that in terms of when it goes orange and red? Is that something you did, or is that?
Yeah, actually, I changed them all because it defaults to like 15 seconds and something else, but I changed them all to 3 and 2 minutes.
So it's like I'm in the corner of my eye, I can see that it's green for the majority of the time. And then at 3 minutes, it went orange. And so that's like, pay attention. And then at the 2-minute mark, it goes red. And that was when it hit 2 minutes. That's when I just hit on my Stream Deck to start the 2-minute pre-roll, which would bring me in sort of on the top of the hour plus maybe 15 seconds of, I had it on normal latency delay.
Exactly. So yeah, I was watching to see, because if someone for whatever reason ended earlier, ended late, I didn't want to end up starting early or starting late. And so I was watching the one before me to see when it actually ended, and then kicking off the countdown to give people time to come over.
I didn't want to, I wanted to close down that window just to avoid any, because I was listening to Petra before, but then I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get any of that audio coming back into my feed. So that's where, like, when it was getting down to the last 30 seconds, I was like, all right, just close that window out and I'm going to go straight onto this. That was my
Get out of there fast. Yeah. The opposite effect, whenever I was doing the intro, was like, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about time. And I looked over and there was still a lot of green ahead of me. So I had to readjust on the fly, which is really fun whenever you're trying during my normal live streams. I want to last about 60 minutes, but if it lasts 45, it lasts 45. But since we agreed that we would all have that 2-ish minute passover, then you really ought to fill it all the way up to whenever you agreed to push it to the next person. That's something, was a really interesting thing to run in terms of time, but without the stage timer or a similar application, I would have definitely struggled myself. Seeing that on the screen really helped. Before we launch into any more questions here, lots of people are saying lots of nice things about us, which is always appreciated. Let's show some of those off right now. Eddie here saying the live handoffs were smooth and flawless. I thought so too. I thought when I watched sat back and watched. It worked really nice. Most people were like, okay, I'm almost out of time. Here we go. Next person. And then just seeing the next person's video was super cool. All ATEM influencers in one place, says Chris. Yeah. That's what the whole group has become there, is a little bit of an ATEM group, which is fun. And here's a question here saying stream month next with in-depth on each topic. So would that be like a couple of days each to delve into a topic? Anyone up for doing? Actually, that's a good point. Someone asked there. 30 minutes was tight, and yes, 30 minutes is tight. But I also felt like that kept the flow. I don't think I would go much shorter. But would anyone here? Aaron, I'm going to have to come to you now. Would anyone here want more time? A little bit more time?
I honestly did think 30 minutes was enough. Like it was a good amount to keep the whole pace of the whole event going. Any longer, and I feel like we would have had more people drop out between streams. And also that would have turned into a 7-hour day, which is then harder to fit in all the different time zones. So I think the 4 hours was a good balance between enough time to get into some content, but doesn't span too bad. I mean, it's latest for you there, John, but we covered a lot of time zones here. So it was a bit of we set ourselves up for a challenge.
Yeah, when we first started talking about that, about doing this, I was initially an advocate for doing an hour a piece, but having done it this way, I actually think a half hour is much better. So it worked out really well, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
I also agree with.
Sorry, go on, Petra. No, please.
I also think that being concise is also very valuable for our as watchers, due to the fact that there's a lot of content, and they can use this panel also to ask questions though. So let's go ahead and also do that.
Yeah, exactly. And the questions are coming in here, so I'm going to jump into some of them right now. So it wouldn't be a live event with some issues that popped up. And Doug, you mentioned about your streaming stuff. A couple of people are asking here, but Eric wants to know, what was the fix for buffering during the presentation? What did you do? How did you solve that, Doug?
Well, I knew that there was always there's always a possibility of having something not go right. And so in planning for that, I had 2 encoders set up. And so when I was made aware that the first one was misbehaving, I physically unplugged the Ethernet jack from that one because it kept going even after I hit the off button, and then just started up the second one. So the downtime hopefully wasn't too long, but I mean, try and plan the best you can for anything that might happen. So knowing that, I actually had 2 separate encoders set up and ready to go.
That's always good.
Have any of you ever streamed simultaneously to the backup stream in YouTube?
No, and I wasn't about to try it for the first time today, so I didn't.
I'm just wondering how that actually works. At what point it switches over? Does it cease?
Oh, you didn't watch my live stream then?
Oh, I was getting ready for this, getting some stuff set up for this. Sorry.
Literally was talking about that right at the end. No,
sorry.
That was one of the things I wanted to spend more time on, and I had to just sort of condense it because I only had a couple minutes left. But you can push videos to both URLs. It says they're supposed to be the same frame rate and resolution. I think it kind of figures it out even if you don't, but it complains about it. But it will only ever fail over if you cut the video from one of the 2. So if you're streaming to both, it'll pick the primary, but if you cut the primary feed, it will fail over, and then it will not go back to the primary unless you drop the backup stream when the primary video feeds back up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
So Doug, I think you could have done that with yours of streaming from both encoders to both URLs, and then just yanked the Ethernet cord out of the 4K one. I think it would work. I would want to try.
Yeah, we'll have to
see if it can handle the 4K versus 1080 properly.
We'll have to try that.
But it'd be a fun experiment.
Yep, for sure.
Next
one thing I did see on
Doug's
was even though he started streaming in HD for the second one, YouTube still was providing a 4K option. So it was, at that point, it had kind of locked into, I'm supposed to be 4K, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, exactly. You don't really want to, like Doug says, you don't really want to try anything too new whenever you're the one that's pressing all the buttons and someone's calling you on the phone saying, hey, here's a problem. Here's a question, or more of a comment maybe, is from Jim. it's really a 10 to 15 minute presentation with room for questions and comments. And I think that makes sense to sort of plan like half the time. But with that in mind, you kind of have to really hope that people have actual questions. So it is a constant juggle while you're setting this up. If people ask you questions, how long can you talk about those questions? Have you left enough time to cover them? Does anybody feel like they really ran out of time to answer any of their questions?
I did.
I didn't even leave any time for questions. I knew I had so
Okay.
much material that I wasn't going to have an opportunity for that, but I would have liked to.
Yeah. Well, we can always
There were more
answer
questions that I
them.
wanted to get to for sure.
Speaking
Yeah.
of that, let's see. Oh, sorry, David, you had something to say?
I was just gonna say, like, I had a ton of really great questions in there that I wanted to get to, but didn't have time because of the material. And I mean, I'd be interested to hear from the group in terms of like, how do you, when you're presenting, also not just like read comments, but like when you've got a ton of comments, you're trying to like filter through that and go like, these comments are going to be the best ones. I want to focus on that because it's going to be most topical. But then you're also trying to present. Is anyone, how do people do that?
That's a great question. For me, it's like every single time I do it differently, and I never reflect on if that was the right way to do it. But it does feel like a bit of a freestyle.
You know, like if you had a producer, someone who's like pulling out a question and then feed it to you, like I think that's, you know, but then you're not a one person band anymore.
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about for like a live show. Is you have your sort of regular people who watch the streams again and again, and it helps that they know the topic pretty well as well. And I'm sure that many of them would be willing for that stream to be a volunteer to queue up questions on their end for you. So I don't think necessarily you'd have to grow the team very much to get some help with that. And I'm sure, like, I know we watch each other's streams much of the time. So to give that job to each other and know what's the right questions and what's maybe not the right questions would be very possible, I think.
Remember, I noticed when I went back, Eric had always had some really great answers in there who choose into my stream every week. So appreciate that, Eric. Thank you for thank you for taking on those questions and answering them.
That's great. Here's a comment about the overall flow of it from let me see. Emerald says the reason it didn't work properly for some was the pure implementation issue with YouTube, especially a combination of pop-out and having enabled autoplay. Sorry, I know for me, I never got it to actually work because I had autoplay turned off. And then, yeah, a weird issue if you've had the chat popped out, it didn't work well for you. It's hard. Like that's one of those things I said when we were testing out this panel before we went live here. It's hard to know where the line is. We were kind of like salespeople for the redirect feature of YouTube, but we don't have any say in if they can fix it. I mean, it barely worked a week ago, and we had to several of us had to send them an email to say, can you please make this work for us? And apparently it started working. So it's kind of strange to rely on that feature and hope that it works, especially if it's early days. But I was pretty happy to see that it worked well. And did anyone actually physically see it here work on their end?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Petra. Okay. What happened?
So, but it depends on where you look, and that's also a question that I actually also have for the audience. But in my case, on YouTube on the desktop, it actually worked quite nicely. But what really was really nice was the Apple TV in my living room. It literally, you just had like 3 seconds of a countdown, and then it just went to the next and to the next. It was, in my opinion, a really good experience. So I'm really curious to know how are people watching our this event? Was it on the phone? Was it on the desktop? Was it on Roku or Apple TV? Or how did you watch that? Maybe you could put that in the comments so that we have understanding.
Maybe John can make a poll.
Yeah. Can we make a poll? Yeah.
I can't type that fast. Or maybe I can. It's more of an open discussion would be great. But yeah, throw it in the comments. It'll be a lot faster. It'd save me one last job to do while
And we could look at our
chatting.
analytics as well. Those should be
Oh, that's
available
true.
now on the show.
That's
Yeah.
true.
True.
Let me see. We have congratulations to the entire group, well done. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think what I'm impressed by is like how we each managed to just do our own little segment pretty well. It wasn't like what I imagine a conference organization or organizing to be, where as the organizer, you'd have to check in and make sure that everyone's got their content. What are you going to show? How do your slides look or whatever? It felt good for me to just say, you've got 30 minutes, and we all picked a topic, and then we could just go from there. So I think it helped a lot that we're all very used to live streaming on our own channels, and then you've got 30 minutes to do something, so go do something. I like that a lot. And I think that's why it was so nice to toss over to the next channel and trust that the content would be good. Because if I was bringing in random people that I didn't necessarily know or that none of us knew, there's a bit more of there's a lot of trust there that needs to be built to say, okay, we're going to go from my channel to your channel. You never know what's going to happen on the other side. I think it worked really well. Jamie says it kept moving nicely. Excellent. Question here asking what encoder everyone is using. We can talk about the overall structure of how this show is being put together right now, but each of you, what are you doing? It's a Zoom call that we're in on the back end, but how are each of you joining that Zoom call? Joseph, what are you using to get in here?
Well, I mean, it's just a Zoom call, right? Except that I've got the feed from my ATEM going. I'm making this call from a computer in another room. So the feed from the ATEM is routing into an HDMI to USB converter that's feeding into Zoom there. And then I've got a screen on there where you guys are full screen that is mirrored to a screen out here, so I can see you on this screen. But it's just a Zoom call at the end of the day.
Exactly. And I'm guessing.
And then there's like 8 devices in between.
But that's not here to there. It's just a Zoom call.
It is. I'm guessing most of us are like basically ATEMing into the Zoom USB. I can see one shake, so I'm going to just go straight to you, Doug, and say, or not, shake. What are you using, Doug?
Yeah, so my entire switcher setup is actually powered off right now. So I probably have, kind of ironically, I probably have the simplest setup of any of them. I just have an HDMI output of my camcorder going into a capture device on the computer, and then using Dante to get audio to and from the mixer, and that's it. That's all. It's really straightforward.
That's great. Petra, go ahead.
I could be even less. So I have my Sony camera right there, the one that I always use. It's going into the ATEM Mini Pro, and that goes directly into the MacBook, and the audio is going via the normal MacBook at the moment. There's nothing in between.
It all sounds so easy, doesn't it? But to be honest with you, the reason it's easy for us is because even though we each ran our own live stream and we streamed to our own channels from our own encoders during the last few hours, we are having special help for this session since we can all just switch off and join a Zoom call. We have 2 people working on the back end for us, Jonas and Tucker, working very hard. And Jonas, I think, will give us a little chat about how it's working. Is that right, Jonas? Are you there? Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so we have in a normal Zoom meeting, and then we take all the Zoom feeds isolated with isolated audio. Because I also have Taka Drago with me here doing a little audio sweetening. A little sneak peek of all the things we have set up, a lot of plugins and a lot of magic to make it all sound amazing. Yeah, and then we stream it to John's YouTube channel. And actually, we do use primary and backup in just YouTube. Because the big thing is, even if you do it with the same encoder, YouTube hasn't implemented the RTMP go away like Facebook did. So if their server goes down, they have no way of telling your encoder to switch to the next RTMP server. So that's why it's really important for important streams, and we considered yours important to stream to primary and backup.
We feel so special. And now I'm going to pick you up on something, Jonas. We started 2 minutes late, which we will have a serious discussion about after the stream. But for real, was there anything there that like a hiccup in the system or anything we can improve for next time?
I forgot to click the checkbox for hardware encoding.
Okay.
But yeah, we it was a little close to setting this all up, and then jumping from another live stream to a panel with one of the talents from that live stream. A little challenging, but we made it all work. I think 2 minutes of delays within.
Yeah. Jonas, can you explain though how you're extracting the Zoom ISOs?
Yeah, so we use Zoom Rooms, and they enable us to get an NDI. So on our end, we get a 1080p clean feed, and with isolated audio, and then we can apply all the magic. We have a multiple in here, and then we bring it all into vMix, bring it back into the Zoom meeting as a program feed, and stream it out to YouTube as well.
Exactly. And I mean, Jonas does this pretty well for a living. So if anybody I can trust to do it, it was you. And I obviously 2 minutes late is perfectly fine for you staying up to midnight to make this happen, and me giving you the vMix file a few hours ago to make this happen. So you're definitely forgiven for 2 minutes.
Typical client thing of like, hey, where's that asset? Oh, that asset. Yeah, really would like that asset, but I can't give it to you yet. And
exactly.
Fine client.
Yes. And then one last thing I have here on the desk, which I can just about show you, is I have my graphics session set up, and it's connected to the cloud, and I'm just visiting that on an IP address that I will not show. Otherwise you could go in there and make changes yourself, and I can show comments by tapping on here, like this one. Where is Jonas? Asks Eric. Where are you, Jonas?
I think I'm here. So I'm producing this from Germany. The cool thing is Tucker is in the US, so we have the audio engineer in the US, producer TD in Germany, and we also can switch our roles. So if Germany decides to shut off my power, we'll be fine.
It could happen. So cheers for Jonas, and let's hear some more cheers for Jonas and Tucker as well. Two people who are just giving everybody here on the panel, of course, giving their time, but for the two of them hidden behind there. Oh, lovely. Nice little clap there. I love it. Okay, so back to what we did today. I have questions that I pulled from each of your streams that you might not have answered, and I just thought it'd be worth answering those just to get a little glimpse of what we might have missed. Apologies if you answered, and if you did answer, you can just answer it fast here. So Photo Joseph, you're up first. Prem Joseph asked, what is your view on the Lumix G7 for live streaming? Quickly.
So that used to be the camera that was my number one recommendation as the lowest cost camera. So it is still a great option. They're a little harder to come by now. The camera's probably 5 or 6 years old now, but it's a great deal if you can find one. It's a great option. But I replaced or upgraded that with the G100 recommendation because it has the same features and it's much more modern. It has better autofocus and a few other really nice features. And it's smaller, which is always nice especially if you're packing a few of them away. But yeah, the G7 is a very good option. It was my recommendation for the lowest cost entry-level live streaming camera until the G100 came out.
Perfect. Yeah. Doug, I was impressed. So this is the question that I want to ask you personally. Your outro, you pressed a button and then music played and then you talked, and I don't think you pressed another button and it ended exactly when you finished.
Yeah, so I had my entire intro and my entire outro set up on single buttons. So so I'm using a combination of just macros and companion, talking to my ATEM switcher, a HyperDeck recorder, and my Yamaha mixer. So one button was controlling everything. So made it nice and slick, nice and seamless.
And you spoke during that music, and you timed that perfectly to stop speaking as soon as it played the video. Was that right? Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, I could see the video on the monitor in front of me, so I knew how much time I had. Sure. But admittedly, I did rehearse that once or twice before. Yeah,
absolutely nothing wrong with that. I was impressed, and I wanted to ask you because I was like, did you press another button there? And did I miss something? But that was great. I loved it.
Doug, could you elaborate on this word rehearsal? I'm not rehearsal. I'm not familiar with
I know
this.
It's like something you never ever hear about in this industry, do you? So yeah.
Backup plan and rehearsal, two things that we did not discuss before this.
Foreign languages, jeez.
Petra, question for you. Any thoughts on, this was from Sanoga on your chat earlier, and apologies if you answered already. Any thoughts about Epiphan products in terms of switchers, hardware switchers?
Oh, that's a good question. I know I did not answer that question. So this is a bit of a limitation in my knowledge about Epiphan. of course, I know that they have SRT tools like the Nano, for example, and I also know that that you guys have been using a bigger component that has like 4 inputs, I believe. However, I thought that I know that it's quite limited. It's limited in the sense that I don't believe that you can have all kinds of overlays, etc. That's baked in. That's what I believe. But maybe I hope that somebody is shaking no. Okay, yeah, go. Photo Joseph.
Yeah, I've been using the Pearls for quite a while. I have a Pearl 2, which is the bigger one, and the Pearl Nano in here. The overlay, so you don't have as many inputs as the ATEM, but everything inside as far as the layout goes, it's like software. You can just drag and resize and crop and scale the inputs however you like, do graphic overlays, all of that. That's all really easy to do. The real sweet spot of the Pearls are that you can stream multiple destinations simultaneously at multiple bit rates, multiple sizes, multiple formats all at once. It's just limited to the CPU power of the hardware and obviously your own bandwidth. So you could easily have a machine that's streaming to your backup in your primary, or streaming out to YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and Twitter all simultaneously, again, given you have the bandwidth. And it has ingest for things like NDI and SRT streams. The Nano now has HEVC support, although we've been struggling getting that to work with YouTube, but that's just growing pains, I think. So it has a lot more flexibility in that regard. It is more expensive than the ATEM. There's definitely advantages and disadvantages to both. They don't necessarily replace one another. It's not, there's not a one is better than the other. It's kind of like comparing the ATEM to the YOLO box. It's just it depends answer. There is no, oh, this one's clearly better. It is clearly more expensive. That much is for sure. But it does provide things that the ATEM simply doesn't. If you need those features, then you need those features.
Yeah, that's great. And like you said, Petron, you're at the start, which I really appreciated, was you're going to talk about stuff that you've used before and that you mostly own. So that's like, I mean, we can all guess about stuff that we think in theory, but having tested it and tried it and getting experience with it is always much better, I think. Here's a question for you, though. What did you use? I liked how prepared you were with your presentation. What did you use to create those graphics?
Oh, just PowerPoint.
Okay.
The simple PowerPoint, and I actually used vMix during the show.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I brought in the PowerPoint, which is just very simple within vMix, and there's like a selector that you can just say I want to have slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. And basically, that's all I did. But it was quite difficult to come up with a good way of having the good parameters so that it's as objective as possible. Mm-hmm. That's quite difficult to do, in my opinion. There's a learning curve for me as well.
Yeah. I hope we all learned loads of things during this, as much as other people seem to learn as well. So that's great. David, I know you answered this during your stream, but I got to ask anyway, because I love it. That lovely little slow zoom in at the start, just to welcome people. I love that so much. What do you, and Ryan agrees. What did you use? How did you do it? Here we go.
No, I had to put it on. What do I use? I use a PTZ camera. So this is my wide shot here. And then I use Companion, basically to recall it. So between, here we go, we do like a slower zoom in. So when I have my run of show and I'm hitting my different buttons for like pre-show or running, then these presets are built into those sort of compound actions, so that when I come live and the lower third swipes off, then we're getting this nice sort of zoom in. So I've really enjoyed. I was end of last year, I was like, okay, I'm going to invest in 2 PTZ cameras because I feel that'll get me most of the way for what I need in the studio, and even for jobs. I think once you throw in like a third wide angle that's just fixed, and you got 2 cameras that can bounce around and do things, it does most small jobs and sort of minimizes camera operators. And certainly for solo stuff, it's really great.
Yeah, exactly. I'm impressed. The camera that I have right now is on loan from Blackmagic, and they're starting to ask for stuff back again, which is fair. So I'm thinking PTZ might be something to test for a while.
Yeah, and I'm pretty happy with this being a Canon camera and the colors out of that. The main sort of trade-off is it's not like a large sensor mirrorless thing with a depth of field that's shallow and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to get more of a video camera look out of it. And I think you also need a fair amount of light. So I've got, 300Ds or whatever, and a couple of other lights just to kind of, so I'm not using too much gain and trying to reduce the noise in the image.
Exactly. Yeah, it looks great. I'm impressed.
Aren't those
I
cameras supposed to be PTZ for you guys? PTZ.
I've been in New York 10 years now, so I think I'm sort of somewhere in between. It should be Z. It should be Zebra.
It's hard not to. Ryan, I've got two questions for you. What time, and I think you said this already, what time did you have to get up to start watching this, and how did you do the flip-flop of your image? Two questions.
So my alarm was set for 2:50 a.m. My body woke me up at midnight. I kind of just stirred a bit as well. So it was a rough night's sleep. It's going to be a long day, but yeah, that was fun. But to get my image flipped, I've got a out of the pocket 6K going into a SDI converter so that I can get long distance to the other room. And it's going into a decimator. And I've just got the scaling vertical flip there. So I just hit enter and then it'll flip it over. So I thought it was a bit of a fun meme for being in the land down under with everything upside down. And it's what we do.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then Aaron, question for you. What would be like your go-to platform, not for your own live streams, but for somebody who wants to do a live stream for you? What would be your go-to platform that you would choose to give you like the ultimate flexibility out there?
I guess it's there's a lot of different questions I would have to ask first, but I do like that Owncast does let you do whatever you want. Even like I showed just the main viewer page, but you can actually also grab an iframe to actually embed it in another website so that you can put it into your own website that looks like whatever you want that way. So I think it's a nice option. It's obviously not the easiest option because it does require that you run that software on a server, but it is very flexible, and they're continuing to work on adding new features and stuff to it. So a lot of good stuff coming soon.
That's great. Question here from Joe. Live question now. How long did you all spend planning this? Now, collectively, we've been talking about this for like 2-3 months, maybe. Would that be fair? Yeah, about 3 months. We all have a little chat every month and check in, and one of the ideas we had was to do this. So that's how long we've been putting it together. But I would love to know, did anybody, be honest here, okay, did anybody raise your hands if you, on the panel here, if you spent more than like 1 day or 2 days planning your section on this, like literally sitting down and planning it? Did anybody here spend more than a couple of days on that, or was it all done within a short period of time?
I spent a fair amount of time preparing the technology, so the graphics and which I shared with all of you and whatnot. But in terms of the materials, I kind of took my normal approach of just having a list of data points that I wanted to get across, and then just kind of winged it from there.
Yeah. Anybody else? Petra, you put your slides together pretty fast, did you? I can't hear you, Petra.
Oh.
There we go.
So no, it was not more than a day, but indeed it was definitely more than I used to in my normal show, because I wanted to be as concise as possible. So I think it took me 3 hours to build the deck.
Nice. And I think my point being here is, like, we might have spent months thinking about this. We also all spent like probably years at this point building the knowledge to be able to talk about it for 15, 20, 30 minutes. And then like a day or two just to put it together. So it's pretty impressive. I'm impressed by the fact that we made it this far. Nice work, everybody. Let me see. What else do we have here?
Thanks to Doug for all the graphics. It ended up being that I only needed about this morning to put the show together. So on my end, so having all those already done, rendered out files, the right size and all that was amazing. And yeah, I didn't do anything for this really until this morning, about 2 hours before we started.
That's great. And we came pretty far if that was the case. Yeah, you're absolutely right though. Thanks to Doug for not only creating the graphics, but also providing them in many formats so that we didn't actually have to do much work on our end as well. So that was great. And I think that was one of the nice things about this. Not only did we all do this together, but each of us did something since we were all interested in it and want it to be successful. And it wasn't just, I'm only going to do things for my short 30 minutes. Everyone had ideas and everyone had things to bring. And I think for a future iteration, we will have lots of ideas. And speaking of ideas, I did throw down a few questions in terms of how we felt like overall things went, or things we could improve in the future. I would love to know if any of you had 60 minutes to fill instead of the 30, or a bit longer to fill, and put up your hand and I can throw it to you. But what would you have added to your section to sort of fill that time? Or would you have said, no, I'm more than happy with 30 minutes? Anybody got any thoughts? Joseph?
I mean, I can talk forever, but to fill in, just to do exactly what I did, but to add more time, I would have done an actual demo of the cameras, kind of showing, here's this camera, hook it up to an ATEM. This is what it looks like through it. This is what I mean by clean output. Here's an example of the microphone going in, keeping in sync. Here's an example of it if you plug it into the mixer and you don't accommodate for frame delay. Those are the kind of things I would have shown, just to kind of more illustrate the point of what I was talking about. Not just tell, but more show and tell.
Yeah, that's true. That's a tough one for 30 minutes, definitely, is to get that nice balance between tell and show and tell. And I think all of us have a advantage that we have multiple cameras usually set up to go. Ryan, did you have? I think I saw your hand go up there as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed I think the fact that it was 30 minutes did mean that we had to get whatever content we wanted to get out as quick as we could. Being an hour, it would have meant that we potentially could have gone a bit more in depth, but it also could have meant there was more chat. And it could also just mean it's just not as, not to the point as much. So I think the fact that we did have that time restraint, it did force us to be more, we had to focus on what we wanted to get out. But I like the idea that since we are going through all our channels, people who are watching these streams can go, oh, I really liked this person's stream, and I want to know more about what they do. And the chances are they'll have a video or future videos talking about this concept. So I think the idea that it will expand all of our reach, and ultimately, I mean, I can hopefully speak for all of us. We do this to help all of you out there in your journeys. So hopefully this helps you and helps you learn more essentially in the future.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this iteration and future iterations, it would be really nice to. I mean, anybody gonna shake their head and say they'll never do this again? I doubt that you're gonna actually admit that right now. But anybody hated it so much that it was unrepeatable? No, good. Okay, that's great. You can tell me for real afterwards. Anybody got any suggestions on people that we'd love to reach in the chat or here on the panel? Suggestions for people that we'd really love to show this to, tell them next time, hey, a 30-minute slot, talk about this topic. I'd love to have those suggestions now. If you have one right now, you can say it or throw it in the chat, or we can reach out to them afterwards. That'd be great.
The other thing that I'm wondering is, like, are there other YouTubers out there that would make sense to include in this as well? So, yeah,
I think, like someone said earlier in the chat on this, was like the ultimate ATEM crew lined up. But I'm more than keen for it. I don't think much of the talk was actually ATEM specific. Some of us touched on that here and there, but we might be known to be ATEM-y, but it's not necessarily the case. And if we can go outside of that realm a little bit more in the future as well, I'm more than happy for that, for sure. but it was fun. Yeah. Let me see. What else did I have here on my list of things? Yeah, we had improvements that I, for sure, made a note of during the whole thing, just to keep a note of them now instead of forgetting about them tomorrow. One that was instantly clear whenever people went from my initial stream to PhotoJoseph's was audio levels. And obviously in this panel discussion, we can come in, we checked some of our audios and we're adjusting on the fly, but it's quite difficult to compare those levels without doing some work before the fact to be prepared for that. So that's one thing that I have made a note of, and we'll come to that in the future. There are plenty of ways for us to do it. It's just something that we didn't put on the list. And then a question for anyone on the panel here. If one of us was unfortunately sick today and couldn't make it, or their internet fell apart, and we had a little bit of time to decide what we were going to do for those 30 minutes, does anyone have any strong feelings on, vamping for 30 minutes, taking over a topic, or what do you think? Would we just, because these things happen, so would we just leave it as a dead air and pick up after the 30?
Well, if PhotoJoseph likes to talk so much, maybe we just go to him whenever there's a problem.
What are you saying? What are you saying, Doug? I was going to suggest just insert a panel, even if there's only 2 people available. Just insert a panel discussion. Dead air is the worst. Then you lose people; they never come back. But if you can redirect to even a smaller panel discussion, then that's better than dead air, and it doesn't put the whole responsibility on one person.
Absolutely right. And I think the way to coordinate something like that would be, it's an interesting level of control that each of us are or are not willing to give over. No one said that we couldn't take stream keys from all of us and set up a central control somewhere and push that out. And I think for a future iteration, it might end up making sense to put that layer in between, and then it would be much easier for us to actually realize that we have a hole in the schedule and there is a central control that we're all connected to, and therefore filling that gap and getting in touch with people to pull them in would be a lot easier. I can see that being a very useful thing to have for this in the future. Anybody disagree?
You're not talking about streaming to a single destination the whole time.
No, just but we could have each streamed to somewhere and then pass that on to each channel, because I was pretty happy with how it worked in terms of the channels. Right. But what might help is that buffer between the two, the ingest and then the stream, so that if there was an issue, we could, like a good example was whenever Doug, the only way I could get in touch with you would be that phone call, and that's something we know now to set up for in the future. But if we were on the receiving end of your stream, we would have probably known faster because somebody would have been working on it, and then we could have either fixed it before or cut to something else while we fixed it, and just have that feeling of a redundancy, a backup plan really is what I'm thinking. And yeah, an empty slot, we can go to that instead. I think that would work really well. And I think that if we all trust each other, which we do now, then handing over stream keys to a channel is not the biggest risk ever. Yeah.
I think that it's an interesting idea. I think that a more important first step is actually just having a back channel that we're all watching. And I know that was something we did not plan for. We have our Discord channel and we have this Zoom call, but we weren't all in the Zoom call before. That would also be chaos. But if planning on, at the very least, having a Discord window up that we're all in on some monitor that you can just keep an eye on, so that we can report about issues like that for whoever's live. I think that'd be a good first step. That's a little bit lighter weight.
It's very hard to, we all had the chat open, but it's very hard to dedicate yourself to keeping an eye on that. And of course, 3 people say this is bad and it goes flying by and you don't necessarily see it. And I could see the same thing happening with the Discord. I feel like if we're going to have some way to break in, like the phone call works.
The idea with the Discord would be that it would only for emergencies. It's like, it's the special, you want to get the person who is on air, you want to get their attention.
Sure.
Put something in here. It's not the general chat for us or whatever.
Right.
But
is that something that the stage timer could handle, or sort of flash up because that was in my line of sight. I actually my phone is on a focus mode of iOS, which I've set up for live streaming, which has like no notifications on it. So if there was something wrong on my stream and it tried to call me, it wouldn't have gone through. So I'm, once the rocket is taken off, I am launching, and there's no stopping me. And then it's what I try to do is a couple of minutes in, like check the chat, and some of that is like welcoming people and saying, "Hey, good to have you here," but it's also like, is anyone reporting that like audio is terrible or there's like stream buffering, all that kind of stuff. So, I wonder if there's something like Stage Timer that could actually be I don't know if they have that feature in it that could go red and be like, alert.
Yeah, they do. They have messages and you can flash the screen and stuff. Okay. But I think it would just, again, we'd have to, I suppose some of it is about the planning process, and we all agreed to lots of different things during the planning process, but it is definitely hard to make sure on Discord, did everyone read and agree to that, or are you just catching up after not being on Discord for a week and there's too much to read there, so you skip it? So it's almost like we need an agreement checklist ahead of time to say, yes, I will have a screen for Stage Timer, and that's where I will always check to see if there's a problem. Yes, I will keep my phone on. I'll allow these people to call me during that session, but no one else can call me. But it's really hard. It's really hard to figure out. And I think this first time give us a general idea of where things might go good and where things might not. But
I think potentially maybe like a last minute briefing, like either the morning of or like just before or the day before. So I know I called you, John, because I missed the last catch up, but yeah, potentially just a final 10-minute. This is what we'll do. Our backup plan if we ever come up with one, and that kind of stuff. So.
Exactly, and that would be helpful. And someone said here, and I think this is a good idea, but it does take some effort. It went past me there really fast. Yeah, here we go. Darren said you could have recorded a segment to fall back onto, and I think that can be good and bad. If we recorded an extra segment, for example, that never got used, then it would be a shame for that person not to see that in there. If we recorded like a 20-minute, if I asked all of you to pre-record your chat before this day, I mean, do we have time to do that, or are we just hoping it works on the day? So I don't think I would have had time to do, because you're much more picky. You can be much more picky about pre-recording that and getting that perfect 30 minutes. And we had to play it 5 minutes later because your stream only died 5 minutes later, but where did you leave off? So while that would have been helpful, maybe some other times it would be better, like you or somebody mentioned before, just to go to a couple of people who are in a panel ready to talk about anything if the time comes. Hard.
No, I think the live thing is a super important part of it. It's a stream day. It's about live interaction. Yeah. And if you do pre-recorded, that's what our other videos on the channel are for. We all make pre-recorded videos, right? So I think it's it's good to interact with the chat. I think that's actually something that we're all pretty good at as well, of like actually looking at our chat during live streams, talking to people. And that's, I think, a really big part of this kind of event. It makes it fun.
Exactly. I agree. I mean, I've got my Stage Timer up in front of me here, telling me that the time is running low. Did anyone with a raise of the hand have any final thoughts on the stream day? Something you loved about it? Something you'd love to do in the future? Nobody loved it?
I really like the collaborative nature of it. Sorry, hand up.
Sorry, go ahead, David.
I love the collaboration of like the teamwork that was involved. John, you did a fantastic job of organizing everything, and even day of in the Discord, giving a rundown of things, and that helped bring me up to speed on some things. And being able to have a very, like, we are starting at this second and we're ending at this second. I think ending at this second was really good too, because I know with my stream, like I think you were saying before, it could be 45 minutes or it could be an hour, or like, you just sort of start waffling on about something if you get in depth. But it was very nice to be concise and to the minute, and it felt organized and felt good.
Good. Anybody else raise their hand there? I might have missed.
I wanted to respond to a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Someone had asked about could we stream SRT to get a lower latency? And the simple answer to that is in YouTube, no. YouTube doesn't support it. YouTube supports HLS, but that is questionable. I've been testing that out. So nope, SRT is not an option to YouTube right now.
Good answer to the question. Thanks for that. Doug, I saw your hand pop up.
Yeah. So the only thing I was going to say is like we called this Stream Day 2022. I hope there's more than one a year. We're not limited to just 1 year.
Next one will be Stream Day 222.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, let's make it complicated. I'm thinking Stream Day in brackets, the summer edition or something.
But
you've
I'm in
got-
winter.
No. Oh yeah, typical. Ruined it.
Sorry, I'll get back here. Sorry.
There we go. Can we get his panel out of here? No. I want to, before we wrap things up, I want to thank each of you for spending your time to, prep your talk, be there for our calls, be here today, come back again. One of the things I really appreciate is not only did you have your piece earlier, but you either stuck around or pop back in again. So that was really great. Big thanks to Jonas and Tucker doing all the button pressing and audio sweetening for us. That's really appreciated. That's just your free time to come in here. Also, I know that it's not free to run computers in the cloud either, so I appreciate that as well, big time. A big thanks to Guy and the DVE store who have provided the Zoom call link that we're using for this panel discussion. And the beauty of that is that it was in 1080p instead of the boring 720p that my cheap account can only offer. So big thanks to the Guy for that. And especially thanks to anybody who watched all the way through and jumped between the channels and did the work if YouTube did not do the work for you and failed you. So thanks for that. Hopefully we'll have a Stream Day 2nd edition this year or next year, depending on how badly we named this one. But before we just push out, I just want to go through each of you and just tell me what is next for you. Where can people find you if they haven't already found your channel during the day? I'm going to go backward in order this time. Aaron, kick it off for us.
All right, you can find me on YouTube, Aaron Parecki, or my website, aaronpk.tv. And yeah, I will be doing hopefully some more videos soon. I go live every Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific.
Excellent. Ryan, what are you up to?
Yeah, so you can find my channel, Ryan Summerfield. I do a whole bunch of stuff. I'm working on a OB trail at the moment, which I will hopefully get you some more updates on that soon. But yeah, stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned for that. Lots of channels to subscribe to. David, what's next for you?
My YouTube channel is David Joshua Ford. My website, davidjoshuaford.com, where I have some companion profiles that you can download. And the next thing I'm working on is the Canon PTZ cameras. I've actually programmed a profile for that. So some of those moves that you're seeing here is something that I'll be able to offer for people to download and make the most out of their Canon PTZ cameras.
Excellent. And Petra, what are you up to? Oh, you're muted, Petra. Oh no.
Just an FYI, the reason why I'm muting myself is that I have a kitten here that's making a lot of noise. But anyway, so you can find me at TechCondo on YouTube, and I am actually starting some video series around this nice, beautiful box, the Constellation 2ME HD. I'm looking forward to really get this beauty working.
Very nice. Yeah, I have one of those boxes here as well, and I think a few other people have those boxes as well. Doug, what are you up to? Do you have one of those boxes?
I do, actually. I got one arrived FedEx like 3 minutes before I started my stream, and that kind of got me a little bit discombobulated before I started my stream, having to sign for that with FedEx. But speaking of that, I actually have a live stream tomorrow where I'm going to take that and incorporate it into a new fly pack that I'm building. So I'll be live streaming that tomorrow. But my YouTube channel is Doug Johnson Productions, and my website is djprod.biz.
Cool. I'm looking forward to that stream to see I'm glad your ATEM came right on time for that stream. And Photo Joseph, where are you at? What are you up to?
Photo Joseph everywhere, Photo Joseph YouTube, and on all the socials and the website. It's all just Photo Joseph. The next video I'm working on is GH6 shooting Open Gate, which is partway done. got another probably week or so worth of work to do in there. And then I'm going to be at InfoComm the week after next. Any of you going to be there? I'm going back to Vegas, baby. I got hired to go out there. It's kind of last minute. So I'll be out there. If any of you are going to be out there, look for me on the Blackmagic booth. I'll be hanging out there working with them that whole week.
Excellent. Sounds good. And one final thanks to Aaron. You've done a great job in the chat there, shutting up some people who joined us in the spam. I appreciate that a lot. Thanks.
That was the other thing I mentioned on the stream about the subscribers only chat mode.
Exactly. I always do that for mine, but I turned it off for this one, and I regret that a lot. So that's it. That was the end of our stream day. Everything went pretty good. I already thanked all of these fine people, but I thought I'd just show all their names again on the chat. I need to move out of the way. I kind of didn't plan that, did I? And then there's all your faces as well, the people who joined us here today. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next edition, hopefully, of Stream Day. All the best.